This has arguably been one of the most aggressive political seasons. There have been persistent ad campaigns to encourage voters to run to the polls, and New York has been no exception. When it comes to the presidential election, New York is not exactly a battleground state, but pretty much every major elected official, from the governor to senators to assembly members, is up for re-election this year, which makes this midterm a particularly crucial one. But what does all of this mean for New York? Here with the answer is Matt Ryan, managing editor and co-host of New York Now. Matt, welcome to the program.
Hi, Jenna. Good to see you again.
It's been a minute since I've been in Albany, so I want to get your opinion on whether or not a blue rave is really going to crash into the state capitol.
Boy, it kind of looks that way. Here at the Capitol, what we're looking at, one of the things we're looking at is the state Senate. Right now, the Republicans have held control of the chamber virtually every year for the last 50. And so a lot of these pieces of progressive pieces of legislation have really stalled. Now, if the Democrats take over the state Senate Tuesday night, which a lot of people expect, you could start seeing things like voting reforms. New York is one of 13 states in the nation not to have early voting. That would likely change. You would likely see the Reproductive Health Act pass. That would codify Roe v. Wade into the state's constitution and would protect New Yorkers if that case was overturned by the Supreme Court. And Monday morning, Ken Lovett of the Daily News had some exclusive news that the Catholic Church said they would be open to allowing those who have been abused in the past to seek justice through something that's called the Child Victims Act, which has, again, stalled the last couple of years. And boy, that was a sign to me that says, you know, maybe the Catholic Church thinks that the Democrats are going to take control of the Senate Tuesday night.
One of the races that seems to be in the bag, quote unquote, would be the gubernatorial race. Andrew Cuomo has a substantial lead right now over his main challenger, Marc Molinaro. And of course, there's a few other candidates who are also in the mix. But the reason why I bring that up is because one of the complaints that came from a lot of progressive Democrats was that the governor wasn't putting too much that was new in his platform, that there wasn't any new ideas that he was bringing forward. And so what I'm wondering is, with the Democratic Assembly and State Senate, can we really expect progressive legislation to get the governor's signature?
I think so. At least those three examples I just gave, I think those would certainly all pass. But you're right, though. Governor Cuomo has almost excelled in the fact that he's been able to govern in a blue state with a Republican chamber. On a piece of paper, that looks great if you were seeking higher office, but that has certainly angered a lot of the progressives here in the state. Those three pieces will definitely pass. After that, we could see some interesting scenarios here that we haven't seen in a while.
Well, speaking of things that we haven't seen in a while, one of them would be a woman possibly becoming the third man in the room, and that's, of course, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, who leads the Senate Democrats.
That's right. She represents the Yonkers and Westchester area. It certainly would be a historic moment. The governor and a lot of the Republicans took heat for the fact that she wasn't in any of the discussions come budget time. I think even Marc Molinaro, the GOP nominee for governor, said so. So that'll be an interesting dynamic if it happens, for sure.
And do we know what is left of what were the upstarts of the IDC? Now, we know that they've been disbanded, and even their leader lost his primary race. But do we know where any of the returning members might stand?
I would think that they're going to push the governor for some of these progressive pieces of legislation. I mean, that's what they got elected on from the Queens, the Bronx, Yonkers, Westchester, Alessandra Biaggi, kind of the star of that class. Governor Cuomo is going to be pushed from the left like he hasn't been pushed since he got in office in 2011.
I want to pivot, though, a moment to our congressional delegation. We have more than a few races where it looks like we either have incredibly close nationally watched contests or some unexpected wins for Democrats.
Absolutely. The two that people are looking at the most, and not just in New York, but across the country, would be New York 19. That's where freshman Representative John Faso, a Republican, is taking on Antonio Delgado, a Democrat. This race has drawn national attention mostly for the ads that have been running almost nonstop in the Capital District since the end of July. A lot of them are controversial that have been produced by the NRCC. The New York Times in late summer called them race baiting. They focus on Delgado's career as a rapper in 2007. Delgado is also a Rhodes Scholar and went to Harvard. So that's been drawing a lot of attention. The latest polls show Delgado slightly ahead, but it's within the margin of error. The other big one is in New York 22, which stretches from the eastern end of Lake Ontario all the way down to Binghamton. Conservative Republican Claudia Tenney represents that district. She was elected in 2016. She's in a tight battle with Utica's Anthony Brindisi. Same thing as New York 19. Those polls show a virtual dead heat. All of the Trumps, the president and his sons, have all been campaigning for Tenney, including today in the Mohawk Valley. So those are the two big ones.
All right, well, I would always say that election night is definitely something to watch, but it feels like it's definitely full of lots of big surprises for this year. So, Matt, I want to thank you so much for joining us and, of course, giving us the crucial and always entertaining reporting for legislation coming out of Albany.
Thanks, Jenna.
Thank you.